Hello and welcome to Cruise 5. Our guest today is an African journalist born in Uganda, now based in the United States of America. He is the host for Straight Talk Africa and also the managing editor for The Voice of America. We commonly call it VOA. Shaka Ssali, welcome to Cruise 5.
Thank you so much.
And welcome to Malawi.
To be very honest with you, I have to say that I am profoundly honored.
Thank you.
And exceedingly gratified.
We know you originally come from Uganda. Mm-hmm. You were born in Uganda. Mm-hmm. Do you say Uganda or Uganda?
Uganda.
Uganda.
Yeah, it's probably the French that would refer to it as Uganda.
Uganda, yes, yes.
But otherwise it is Uganda.
Where exactly were you born in Uganda?
I come from a small town called Kabale.
Okay.
In southwestern Uganda.
All right.
Almost towards the border of Uganda and Rwanda.
Okay.
And the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
So that's so you must have had influences from all those three countries, because you share borders with them.
You know, it is very interesting that you refer to them as those three countries. But
yeah.
Three countries, frankly, as far as who is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
You are probably taking us back in Berlin, the capital of Germany, back in 1884-85.
Yes.
When Chancellor Bismarck chaired this conference of several European powers at the time.
Yes.
And some of which, in fact, were not powers, including Belgium, for example.
Yes.
With not a single African representation.
My goodness.
And these people decided that this is Rwanda.
Yes.
This is Congo.
And this is Uganda.
This is Nyasaland.
Exactly.
Now Malawi, of
exactly.
course.
And Zimbabwe. And Zambia.
Naming two countries after an individual, honestly.
What a tragedy.
You're talking about John Cecil Rhodes.
Yes.
Can you imagine what we call today Zimbabwe and Zambia, were pretty much personal properties of this particular individual?
Unbelievable.
What an arrogance, really.
Oh, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. But I think humanity has gone through such phases, and someone would say we're still going through some quite interesting phases as we speak. Let's go back in time to the time that you were born in Uganda. Tell us more about your family.
Very interesting. I think I come from really what you would characterize as a humble beginning.
Wow.
My father was neither poor nor rich.
He just managed to get by.
He just happened to survive. He had his dignity. He worked very, very hard, very disciplined, very focused. He was the sort of guy that could do anything within his powers and beyond to make sure that he raised a good family and provided for it.
How did he put the meal on the table? What was his preoccupation?
You know, my father actually, when you think about it, did not, unlike you and me, go through this modern Euro-American educational system. He was a man that was very, very wise. In fact, I have often said, if I had about 10% of my father's wisdom sincerely, given the kind of advantages sincerely that I have had, to the extent that I have gone on in life to earn a PhD, a doctorate of philosophy from one of the best universities in the world.
Yes.
I think if I had only 10% of my father's wisdom, I could probably abolish these artificial boundaries on the African continent.
And just make it one
unite it into one country, one capital, and I probably would have the opportunity to lead it. I
think I'm listening to a politician speaking.
I'm not particularly a politician, but I interact with lots of those types of politicians.
You growing up, what was happening around the world that time?
A lot of things.
Was somebody busy splitting Africa into smaller bits, or they had already done the splitting and they were taking control of that, or there was the freedom, the struggle for freedom going on?
The splitting by the Europeans obviously had been long completed.
Yes.
But then you had gallant African individuals here.
Yes.
Among them, your own founding leader of modern-day Malawi.
Yes.
Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda.
Yes.
A man I pretty much came across because I normally looked for a copy of what was known as Drum Magazine.
Yes.
Which was published out of Soweto.
Yes.
A suburb of Johannesburg, of course, as you know.
Yes, yes.
And was published by some liberal, white Africans and, their African counterparts who were obviously struggling against what was known as apartheid.
Apartheid at that time.
And, of course, also agitating for political independence. And so I remember when I was in primary 6, you probably call it grade 6.
Yes.
I remember looking at Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda. I liked him so much that, in fact, I started even calling myself Hastings. No, honestly, he was a guy who was part of this very elite group of Africans living in the United Kingdom.
Highly trained.
Yes.
Highly educated.
Educated in the Americas,
yes.
United States,
yes.
where he got an MD.
Yes.
At Mehari Medical School.
Yes.
Which was an African-American university.
Yeah. Fantastic. I don't know who I'm talking to, whether I'm talking to Hastings or Shaka, but I'm talking to a gentleman who works for the Voice of America.
Yes,
he's the managing editor. I guess you must love music. As Africans, we've got our own jive and vibe going on.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Music is, part of the terrain.
Tell me what kind of music you like.
For example, frankly, I like Malaika.
Oh, yes.
Nakupenda
Malaika. You must speak Swahili, right?
Yes.
Uganda?
I do. Well,
definitely.
Uganda, not very much so.
Yes.
But obviously, being part of what was known as East Africa.
Yes.
You have Tanganyika in Tanzania. Zanzibar. You have Kenya.
Yes. Malaika Nakupenda Malaika. This is a song that Miriam Makeba did, and it's an iconic song in Africa, being done by so many other people. And we're going to take a quick break and listen to this song in Cruise 5. And that's the choice of our guest today, Shaka Ssali. Welcome back. We're talking to Shaka Ssali, host for Straight Talk Africa of VOA. He is also the managing editor there. And he's handled a gun before. A paratrooper jumping off choppers.
You can't believe it. Not really necessarily that I jumped out of helicopters, but I jumped out of planes, including the DC-3 and what have you.
Jeez.
Can't believe that these days, Joab, as I fly, especially across the Atlantic.
Yes.
Or flying from Europe to South Africa,
yes.
where you sit on your chair.
Yeah.
For more than 10 hours.
Yes.
You can't believe that I feel very, very uncomfortable.
That's unbelievable. The two things don't reconcile at all.
Yes,
someone who is able to jump off planes.
Yeah, it should be much easier and much more comfortable for you to sit so that the pilot can do his thing. Not, being in a position where circumstances actually invite you to get out of your seat.
Yes.
Kick in the air.
Yes.
And the wind sucks you.
Exactly. Oh my God. I never get that. I never get that.
Yes, and you begin to look at your two parachutes, especially when you're doing the first phase of automatic.
Yes.
You have you have two parachutes just in case the main one does not work.
Yes, so that's the backup. Yes.
So you can pull the lever.
Yeah. And then you
so that you leave, yeah.
Before you started pulling levers and relying on reserve parachutes and things like that, what did you do in terms of education now in Uganda? How far did you go before you became a child soldier, as I understand?
I did not go really very far because I happened to drop out of school.
Yes.
Which was...
in primary school, that is?
No, senior secondary school, which was 10th grade.
All right.
At the end of 10th grade...
You dropped out?
I became so bored.
With education?
Very bored with what I was doing, other than, frankly, athletics. I used to be very good in athletics. I used to compete in 400 meters hurdles.
Wow.
I could, in fact, have been a world-class athlete.
Wow.
I was not particularly good at interacting with my teachers, especially those who were, who required discipline and focus and all that kind of stuff. So I had problems with authority.
Okay.
I had a problem with authority. So eventually I dropped out of high school. And my father happened to be very well politically connected at the time.
All right.
It was under the regime or the administration of the then Ugandan President, Dr. Apollo Milton Obote.
Obote.
Yes, and with his Uganda People's Congress.
Yes.
Which was, of course, in charge of the country.
Yes.
So because my father was one of the active party members and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I was able to be introduced to some very powerful individuals who took me on to go and join the national intelligence of sorts. And so in that process, I was able to pick up a lot of skills. Doing intelligence, counterintelligence, and all sorts of things.
Shouldn't have been hard joining the military, considering that you were quite an athlete, I think. So physically, you were already...
It was very easy, and Joab was still very young, really, so it was very easy.
How old were you around this time?
We're talking about 17 and a half.
That's fairly young.
Yeah.
They could allow you to join the military at that age, at that time?
When you're talking about countries which are democratically challenged, you may have laws and all that kind of stuff, but do they really matter?
Here we are talking about child soldiers, talking about the rebels employing child soldiers.
Yeah, but
and here we are with a legitimately...
How can you possibly call an African who is around 17 and a half a child soldier, really?
They are children.
Well, maybe these days, or perhaps in Western...
Well, in those days at 17, you were pretty tough enough.
In fact, in some cultures, you find that that 17-year-old kid is already claiming to be a man.
Yeah.
Because circumstances have actually forced him to graduate to that level, in the sense that culture has required him to get married.
Yes.
And you could, of course, have children.
Probably a father of two.
Yeah.
At 17.
Our mothers used to be married when they were like 13, like 14, you know, that kind of stuff, Joab.
Yeah. That is our guest today in Cruise 5, Shaka Ssali. And we're going to move on to our next song now. We did Malaika first time.
We did Malaika.
Miriam Makeba.
Well, of course, guess what?
What?
The first husband of Miriam Makeba.
Yes.
Guess what? Was my friend.
Really?
Hugh Masekela.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get to how you get to know. I don't want to get carried away. But let's listen to this song first. What you did a lot of songs.
Yeah, he did.
Which song are we going to?
I think I remember saying something like "Choo Choo Train."
Yes. Choo Choo Train. Fantastic song from Hugh Masekela. Let's listen to it. How did you get to meet Hugh Masekela?
Hugh Masekela, you can't believe it. I met him very late in my life.
Okay.
He actually, in fact, I was at the Voice of America.
Yes.
I was interviewing a former Ghanaian president.
Okay.
Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings.
Okay.
Retired, but certainly not tired. And it so happened that Jerry Rawlings, as a flight lieutenant in the Ghanaian Air Force, was a very close buddy of Hugh Masekela. When Masekela was obviously in exile, running away from apartheid.
Yeah, in South Africa, yes.
And at the time he was living in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. And in fact he ended up getting married to a Ghanaian lady. And so that's how I connected with Hugh Masekela. So he actually came to VOA, and I had the opportunity, of course, to host him. And he told me that he had actually developed into my fan because he used to watch me in Johannesburg. At the time, there was what was a platform called SABC Africa.
Okay.
You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how we started.
Great man. I mean, the thing he did with his trumpet, unbelievable.
Great man. I mean,
absolutely,
he went to some great school of music in the States and what have you. He was a great man, no question about it.
How did somebody who was struggling to fit into the army in Uganda end up in the United States of America?
Very interesting. As a kid in Kabale,
yes,
that very remote southwestern Ugandan small town,
yes,
My home happened to be next to what you would call a labor recruiting sort of like neighborhood.
Okay.
And it was run by a guy called Skadi, who was Jewish from I think probably Greece, and he was working for a company called Uganda Company,
okay,
which was owned by the Church Missionary Society, and they were recruiting labor from Uganda, from the part of the country that I come from.
Yes.
And also recruiting others from the neighboring Rwanda and Burundi.
Okay.
To take them into, tea plantations in Uganda, sugar plantations. There was also Kilembe mines, which was exploiting copper and cobalt.
Okay.
And so these people, before they are assigned,
yeah,
to these places where they would eventually go to work, they would have to entertain them.
Okay.
So as to figure out a way of reducing boredom.
Okay.
And so they would actually be screening film for them, cinema.
Ah, I see.
And as a very little kid, I would run to that camp and I would be coming face to face with characters like John Wayne.
Yes.
In these cowboy
films, yes, the Western
spaghettis and all kind of stuff.
Yes.
I would come into, obviously, come into contact with people like Gene Autry,
yeah,
Clint Eastwood,
yes,
The Return of Sapato,
yes,
all these kinds of things. And so, obviously, yes, I may have been physical,
yeah,
in cavalry.
But in your mind?
In my mind, guess what? I was in Hollywood.
You were fascinated by the Hollywood movies.
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely. And guess what?
Yeah.
I ended up going to America.
How did you get there? Were you recruited?
No, I wasn't.
With that determination, you could as well walk.
I wasn't recruited by anybody. Nobody tried to do that to me. I basically volunteered.
You did?
I volunteered, obviously, by finding out the appropriate information that you need.
All right.
And the tools that you must have in order to navigate your way to the destination that you identify.
So you went there to work or to study or to do what exactly?
I went to study. In fact, I went to become a journalist. I think as I grew up,
yes,
I may not have been one of those students that had a very, very high IQ, intelligence quotient.
Yes.
But of course, I probably was very fortunate enough to have probably some other intelligence quotients, just like probably what I would call environmental quotient.
Yes. Okay.
Social skills.
Okay.
And you could also later, when I grew up, I found out that there was such a thing as curiosity quotient.
Oh, is it?
Yes, CQ.
Well, I guess I must have.
And then, guess what? Passion quotient.
That's quite reassuring. And because all we have known growing up is intelligence quotient.
Precisely. So the thing is, there are so many different types or aspects of intelligence that you need in order to succeed in this world.
All right.
Yes, you may succeed in the laboratory if you have a very high IQ.
Yes.
And there are those types of people, and I even have some relatives who have PhDs from one of the best universities in the world.
Yes.
I'm talking about, for example, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I have a maternal uncle, Dr. Petero Kwizera. I mean, he's a graduate of that place. And he was one of those people, when I wrote to him at the time he was in Massachusetts, that I was interested in studying, becoming a journalist and what have you. And he wrote back, he said, you know what, you can actually do it, if you want.
You're like, really?
Yes. And I said, then I'll go for it. But part of it, I think, really, Joab, is that right from the time I was a kid, I used to easily interact with reading newspapers.
Okay.
Reading magazines. Magazines were like my Bible.
I get that. Because, I mean, you seem to have followed the Drum magazine quite a lot.
Oh, yes.
And so many other magazines.
I mean, it accessed me to, again, like your founding Prime Minister and President, Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda.
Yes.
It accessed me to the founding Prime Minister and President of Zambia, Dr. David Kenneth Kaunda.
Kaunda. In those days, those things were the portal to the whole world.
Precisely.
Now you talk about the internet, but those days it was just magazines and newspapers.
I couldn't wait for a month, my friend, because it had taken a month for you to access it.
The magazine.
Oh yes, for me.
And you'd read it cover to cover.
Oh yes.
Yes.
No question about it. And I did not have money to buy a copy, by the way.
Yes.
I would have to literally beg from someone who had
read their copy and had
to buy it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I also became very interested in reading books written by Africans for Africans.
Okay.
They were published by different, publishing houses, Macmillan and what have you.
Yeah.
And they were called the African Writers Series.
Yes.
I literally read almost, each and every copy, whether it was Chinua Achebe,
Ngugi wa Thiong'o,
whether it was Ngugi wa Thiong'o,
Wole Soyinka,
Cyprian Ekwensi,
yes,
Aikweyama,
yes,
you name it.
All those.
Huh?
You read all of them.
Farere in South Africa, yes. You name it. I read all those things. And of course, one thing led to another.
Yeah.
I developed, of course, also reading books written by the Englishmen.
Okay.
Hadley Chase.
Yes, Hadley Chase.
All sorts of things.
Yes.
And so, yes, I was not interested, for example, in mathematics.
Okay.
And because I was not interested in mathematics, I was obviously not interested subsequently in physics.
Okay.
In chemistry.
Yes.
In biology.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
No.
But when it came to English literature,
yes,
I was almost like the top in my class.
I mean, that was just like drinking water.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes I remember
nature.
when I was in the army and I still read, I would meet some people from Makerere University who were supposed to be quote-unquote geniuses.
Yeah.
And would talk about the world because I used to read magazines like Time Magazine.
Yes.
Newsweek.
Newsweek, yes.
All those type of things. Newswatch of Nigeria.
Yes.
Those types of things. I would be talking very competently, would be talking about, for example, Watergate.
Yes.
And I would be talking as if, in fact, I had a front row in Washington.
Yes.
As Watergate evolved. And so people would say, wait a minute. And those type of things happened when I was in military training. I had, Jewish instructors from Israel and all kind of stuff. They used to ask me, which college did you go to?
No, I didn't go to any. I went to the Radio Books College.
Precisely. And so eventually when I actually did some aptitude tests before going to the United States, you had to do especially what they call TOEFL.
Yes, TOEFL.
Test of English
as a foreign language.
I really didn't need that. I didn't require it really. I was,
you must have aced it.
Oh yeah,
straight
but
up.
Anyway, it is not even a test that determines a lot of things really. It simply suggests to them the type of level you could follow, and so I was subsequently admitted to 3 different colleges to go and do my journalism studies and all kind of stuff.
Okay.
Now the next thing was, where do you get the money from?
Yes.
I was not rich.
Yeah.
But I had a Mercedes-Benz car, which I had bought courtesy of Idi Amin expelling the Asian community.
Okay.
Not that I did, I really approved of it, but I bought it in.
You got a Benz?
I bought it in an auction.
Okay.
Almost peanut, really.
Yeah.
And so it became my ticket.
Yeah.
To go to the United States because I sold it to some professor at Makerere Medical School, and he actually didn't give me all the money, but he gave me some of it, which was enough for me to buy a ticket.
And after that, you didn't care about the balance, really.
Well, I cared about it so much, but it never, I never got it.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Okay, fine.
I met this guy many, many years later after I had completed not only 1 degree, but 4, including a PhD.
And you're like, can we talk about my balance?
No, there was no need even to go there. Joab, if you have booked somebody and somebody is in the process of falling down, just give him a hand so that he can receive a soft landing.
That's our guest today in Cruise 5, Shaka Ssali, host for Straight Talk Africa. It says he loves music quite a lot. Personally knew Hugh Masekela, and we also had music from Hugh Masekela's first wife, Miriam Makeba. I don't know if we are keeping on in that loop, or I think we need to get out of this now.
Yeah,
we'll get caught in this trap.
We could probably get something else, especially we could introduce the great Bob Marley. I think we should actually go to Bob Marley and play Zimbabwe.
Fantastic. Zimbabwe from Bob Marley. How did you find yourself working for the Voice of America?
How did I find myself?
Yes.
Are you...
Was that your first job in America, or...?
No, it was not my first job in America. My first job in America was probably the sort of job that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
What is that?
Like washing dishes, for example.
That's probably what every person does when they go.
But guess what? Even great people like Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
Who was the president of the United States, did that kind of job. So
you see, I think
those were some of the jobs that I did. In fact, my undergraduate, at the State University of New York, I was given what you would call a tuition waiver.
Okay.
Meaning you do not have to pay any money on a fees. They call it tuition to attend classes.
Okay.
So I was given a scholarship for that.
Okay.
And then I was also granted $600 towards my book every semester.
Okay.
By a man who was a professor. What was his name? He was called Paul Ward. Mm-hmm. Paul Ward was the dean of international students at the State University of New York in Albany, and I remember being introduced to him by one Dr. Andrew Kaira, who had just completed a PhD in criminal justice. Okay. He was a Ugandan who had been in the Ugandan police. A very nice guy. He eventually became a politician and eventually, in fact, took up arms to fight Idi Amin and subsequently Obote and what have you. And he ended up, in fact, being in Museveni's cabinet, but he couldn't live for more than a year. He was assassinated.
My goodness.
Up to now, we don't know who actually did it, but suspicions are as good as, you may want to guess. So he actually introduced me to Dr. Paul Ward. And I remember Dr. Paul Ward talking to me, and we compared notes for about 15 minutes. Okay. In America, unless someone frankly develops an interest in you, he's not going to engage you for 5 minutes.
Yes.
2 minutes probably is even a lot. So if someone actually
is able to listen to you for 15 minutes,
means he probably
you have
something
gotten their attention.
Precisely.
Yes.
So I remember after that, he asked me for my certificates. I told him I did not have them. And he said, why? I said, I didn't go through that route. Yeah. And he said, you know what? On the basis of our conversation, I sincerely think that you are admissible. We will admit you. I will grant you $600 towards your books a semester. Yes. I will waive off your tuition, and then you can probably pick up a job cleaning some dining tables in some of the student halls on campus. Yeah. Which will go a long way in paying your room and board. And that's what happened for the next 3.5 years. In fact, for a degree that ordinarily takes 4 years, I did mine in 3 years and 1 summer.
And you were done?
I was done for a year, but the more I studied, the more I realized that I was probably suffering from a sort of intellectual kwashako.
What is that?
I was sort of like when you haven't eaten food for a very long time.
Yes.
What kind of disease do they attribute to you? It's like kwashako. And so I was kind of like intellectually malnourished.
Okay, so you needed more.
I had this curiosity.
You were hungering for more.
Precisely. And so I said, no, I have
this is not enough.
Graduate school, do a master's degree. And because I had very good points, I had like what you would call the equivalent of like an upper, what do they call it? Not the first class.
Yeah, sure.
But the second.
It's B plus or something like that.
I was a B plus, yeah. And so I was admitted and with a full scholarship to do a master's degree in international relations. Yes. And international media. At that time, I was already a very reasonably respected student journalist. Okay. I was editing a magazine, university magazine, focusing on Africa. I was also a guy that was inspired by one great television broadcaster called Walter Cronkite. He used to be the anchorman for CBS News.
Okay.
And every day at about 6:30, I would go in the student union and would watch this man for 30 minutes presenting the news. I was also attracted to another American guy who, actually pretty much Canadian, Peter Jennings. He used to be an anchor for ABC News.
Yes.
He, interestingly, was also a high school dropout. He had dropped out of school in 10th grade, just like yours truly, Shaka. But unlike Shaka, his father had actually been a very prominent Canadian journalist.
Okay.
Radio journalist.
Yes.
So he had grown up in the sense it was like in his DNA.
Yeah, to become one.
Right. So.
But this is the time that you used to write very critical pieces about African leaders.
Oh yes, I used to do that. Where did you find that from?
You were not very popular back home at that time.
I am probably not still very popular, especially with the powers that be, but I'm enormously popular with most Ugandans and most Africans. But
you just didn't like those guys back home, and back home in Africa, I mean, doing all these kind of things. And for someone who had read so much, that must have been very infuriating, I think.
I mean, I think that it's probably in my DNA, frankly, to just ask really for social, economic justice for all of us.
Yes.
For the little guy.
And it's all
I like
right.
the idea of giving the voice to the voiceless.
Yes.
I don't really care much about the guys that, you
ruffle their feathers.
The guys that, are in charge and what have you, and are very selfish.
Yeah.
The guys that I characterize as patriotic to their stomachs.
They're patriotic to their stomachs.
Yes, the stomachs of their families, friends, not society.
Yeah.
I don't admire those types of people. I'm so contemptuous of them, and I think I have a legitimate reason why I do so. Because frankly, as a journalist, I think that journalism to me is not a job really. It's not an occupation. It's a calling.
It's a calling.
It's a calling just like we see missionaries.
Yeah.
Just like we see physicians, nurses, doctors, teachers. So I actually look at a journalist who I respect as someone that has the qualities of a physician or a nurse, a teacher, and a missionary rolled into one. Yeah. It's not about money.
This wasn't your first time writing, though, when you were writing all these stories and pieces about African leaders.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing critically about Africans when I was an undergraduate in New York.
Okay.
And one of my targets, of course, was a man called, obviously, Idi Amin, naturally, because I had run away from Uganda. Another one was Mobutu Sese Seko Wazabanga of the then Zaire, now DRC.
DRC, yeah.
Another one was Jomo Kenyatta.
Yes,
of Kenya.
Mzee Jomo Kenyatta.
Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Those were some of the people that I really detested. I didn't like the actions.
Did you ever write about our president?
No, incidentally, I did not.
Is that because you once called yourself Hastings?
I seem to have had a soft touch for the Ngwazi. The Amuyaya. Didn't exit
in a very good fashion, sadly.
I think I liked the way he also did, especially when he lost the 1994 elections.
Yes, quite statesman-like.
Can you imagine how many people in his position, sincerely, would organize an election that they would actually accept to lose?
Yes.
The man considered defeat with grace.
Yeah.
He even offered to the new president, Bakiri Muluzi. If he wanted him to be helpful in one way or the other,
he could. Yeah, he did that.
He was willing to do that. So I did have some troubling problems with my hero, Dr. Hastings Kamuzu Banda.
Yeah.
Especially because I felt that he was, of course, one of those people who were part of what was in vogue at the time as one-party state.
Yes.
You're talking about a society where nobody, frankly, would even attempt to think that they could develop an appetite for the presidency, or even in fact that they could actually feel comfortable that they actually owned the right to own an opinion.
Yes.
I think that was very unfortunate.
That's sad. That was just sad.
But as somebody once said, power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts
Absolutely. Boy, and we're seeing all that happening across Africa. You have interviewed almost every president. Well, not every, but
not really, but
many presidents.
Yeah, many presidents,
and
but
former presidents as well.
Yeah, but you know, lately, I don't attract a lot of African presidents to my show. I think they don't really feel comfortable. Because, to be honest with you, Joab, I happen to be the kind of guy who doesn't really feel comfortable simply opening the microphone.
Yes.
For somebody.
Yes, and letting them lie to you.
Precisely, or lie to the audience.
Yes.
I cannot. I respect my audience so much.
Yeah.
And respect the profession so much that I wouldn't want to find myself in that kind of situation. So I think they have to make up their minds if they want to come to my show. They know that I'm the sort of guy who is going to do my homework.
Yeah.
I am definitely going, therefore, to subject them to what I would call like, it's like, grant you an interview, but I interact with you in a manner that is journalistically filtered.
Mm-hmm.
Because my goal, frankly, is not to make you look bad.
No.
But it is to help you to interact with my audience, but in a manner that is journalistically filtered. And for me, what really guides me are the facts and the issues. When we talk, I make sure that the facts develop legs. It is the facts that you are going to be faced with, not Shaka. I don't care how smart you are or how dapper you are, like you are dapper.
Yes.
Handsome. No. It's to be truthful.
Tell us the truth.
Precisely. That's very simple. But you see, a lot of people do not find it very easy to do that.
But it's not very amusing, especially when you're president. And your president was not particularly amused last time in 2016 when you went to moderate the candidate debates there.
I don't know whether it is the president who should have felt like that, but probably Shaka Ssali is the one who should have felt like that, because I never even had the opportunity, in fact, to do what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be a moderator. I did not invite myself.
No, you did not.
I was invited by an interreligious group, respectable group in Uganda, to be one of the moderators. They obviously invited me based on the kind of track record that I had accomplished.
Yes.
But when it came to the president deciding to be in that second debate, one of the conditions that he came up with was that Shaka should not be one of the moderators of the debate. And it was very difficult for the organizers to figure out a way of getting rid of me, because they actually felt that without me there would be no debate.
Okay.
Because the audience was very much interested in me.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the audience sort of felt that the debate was a sort of special edition of Straight Talk Africa.
Okay.
Not realizing that here was an independent group, an organization that had invited me along with someone else.
Okay.
To obviously do our jobs in a manner that would respect and reflect the ground rules and what have you. And so when the president said that he really didn't like me to be one of the moderators, they told him, no, Shaka will definitely be moderators, because look, he enjoys the overwhelming respect of the audience.
Yes.
And so eventually they decided that they should have a compromise. They decided to recruit a head of political science at the department at Makerere.
Yes.
A lady.
Yes.
And so that way they succeeded in the sense that they would have that lady with Joel
That gentleman.
Yeah.
And you.
Yeah. But me, I would be kind of like, pretty much irrelevant. And so I really wanted to walk away.
Yeah.
Because I was told that very day of the debate.
Unbelievable.
At noon. These guys came, and this guy is a retired judge.
Yeah.
He came, he said, we just came from State House.
Yes.
The president is not comfortable with you. I said, why would the president be uncomfortable with
me?
He said, you know, he really doesn't feel comfortable with you. And so I said, well, if he doesn't feel comfortable with you, what about you? You invited me. I didn't apply for this.
Yes.
They said, yeah, but we had to come up with a compromise. So I said, what is the compromise? The compromise was for me not to ask him a question.
Yeah.
Then I said, then how can you claim that I'm a moderator?
If I can't ask one candidate
and it is the
question.
Principal.
He's the principal, exactly.
Then how can you say that I'm a moderator? So I told him, I said, you know, I'm going for lunch and I'll think about it. I'll call Washington and what have you. I think that for me, I'm willing to walk out. I don't see what kind of a moderator I would be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, I tried to call some of my bosses in Washington. It was a weekend. I couldn't get them.
Yeah.
And so I waited for 4 o'clock. I called the retired judge.
Yes.
And I told him that I was leaning towards walking away.
Okay.
He said, Shaka, could you please come to the International Conference Center? I said, sure. I went there. We sat down for 15 minutes. And he told me, he said, Shaka, I understand, you know, why you should feel the way you do.
Yes.
But I also really feel that you are in a great position to help Uganda at least develop democracy. I said, how? He said, because let's face it, this debate should not be about Shaka Ssali or about Joab Museveni. It should be about Ugandan democracy. I said, but where is democracy? I said, democracy, in fact, is on the test right now.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
We're talking about freedom of expression.
Ironically.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, sincerely, I was leaning towards walking away. He said, Shaka, please don't.
Don't go.
Yeah, please just be a team player. Please. You know? I said, well, I am here. Let me just...
Yeah, let's just do this.
Yeah, because people may say, oh, you know, he's big-headed,
yeah,
exactly. You know, that kind of stuff.
There's always danger of being misunderstood when such a thing happens.
Precisely. So that's really what happened. And
but that was really regrettable.
Yeah, very interestingly, though, is that the Ugandan president, Joab Museveni,
yes,
he used to be a very, very close friend of my dad.
Was he?
Very close. As a matter of fact, in my family, one of my uncles, James Karambuzi, was one of the people who were first publicly executed in 1973. And the reason was that he was actually found or apprehended with weapons, guns, belonging to a rebel leader called Joab Museveni.
Wow.
He's supposedly a national hero. We used to have a very, very close relationship with Museveni for a long time.
Yeah.
Until, of course, I think he discovered that I wasn't quote-unquote malleable. I just, decided to remain professionally a journalist. Because you know as well as I do that the only thing, frankly, that is very important to a journalist is integrity.
That's true.
Yeah. Without integrity,
you lose that, then
you might as well look for another job.
Just hang up your boots and go and do something.
Precisely. I'm not doing public relations. If I wanted to do public relations and get tons of money, I would be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our guest today in Cruise 5, Shaka Ssali, host for Straight Talk Africa of VOA. And we're just getting to know more about the kind of music that he likes and the thing that he's been through. We've listened to 3 songs. Let's get to our 4th song now.
Yeah, Joab, I have had the dubious privilege of covering a lot of civil wars on the African continent.
Yes.
We're talking about Ethiopia, we're talking about Rwanda, Sudan, we're talking about Angola, Burundi, and I really cut my tooth, especially with the Rwandan crisis. I've been to Sierra Leone, Liberia, you name it, kind of stuff. And so I think We Are the World would probably be appropriate here because it reminds me of how these great, world artists came together in a room in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And at the time I was actually in Los Angeles myself as a student, a graduate student, was at UCLA when they came together and where I think basically the guy who was in charge was Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones.
Yes.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. And able to come up with this, piece of music that was able to help them, collect a lot of money.
Yes.
That eventually ended up perhaps making a difference in the lives of some people who were starving in Ethiopia at the time.
USA for Africa, we are the world. You are in an unenviable position, working for a major network in the United States of America, and your country being proud of you. There's our son. There's our son. And you have to represent your country in a way, and the whole of Africa. But then there's all these things happening in Africa that are not particularly pleasing, and you have to report them.
Right.
And people feel like, look at our son. He's betraying us. How does that feel? You have to, as you say, you are a journalist, and you're a journalist through and through. You have to maintain the integrity. You have to hold people to account.
Yes.
And at the same time, people are like, tell the positive story, tell the good stories about our continent and about our country.
Yes. You're right, Joab, I run into those types of things
Yes.
here and there, but I really don't think much about them, because let's face it, all of us have jobs to do. And our jobs are such that, they put us in a situation where you make observations, you watch, and you report on what you're seeing. In my particular case, though, I no longer do pretty much that. I pretty much do what you would call the story behind the story, really. So it's pretty much analysis.
Okay.
That I end up doing, really.
Yeah.
And I do it with the help of people who I think are very respectable.
Yes.
In the sense that they have what it takes to do the types of jobs that they are able to do. I can remember over the years, I used to have a guy that is from Ghana, who is remarkably smart, written a lot of books, and someone that obviously wishes Africa to be democratic, because let's face it, it is only democracy that at the end of the day would be in the interest of the vast majority of the Africans.
Yes.
Because democracy, as it was defined at least by a one-time key American president, Abraham Lincoln,
Yes.
he described it as a government of the people,
The people.
by the people,
People.
for the people.
For the people.
But unfortunately, most of what we see in Africa could probably be characterized as a government of some people, by some people, for some people. That's not democracy. In fact, some Nigerian writer has characterized it as democracy.
It's absolutely crazy. Some have called it kleptocracy. You are coming in Malawi at an interesting moment when we're talking about a lot of kleptocracy.
Yes, but I think that Malawi, you are in a very unique position as far as Africa is concerned, because let's face it, yes, you have had some very interesting democratic rights.
Yes.
I mean, you have had a president dying in office and somehow being succeeded by someone that was not supposed to succeed him.
Exactly.
But of course, at least that day that it happened, when you got one of Africa's, few heads of state, probably the second actually.
Yes.
At least democracy won the day.
It did.
Your constitution, really.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it won the day.
Yes.
And then it also did win the day when that particular individual, Joyce Banda, lost an election.
Yes.
I don't know why she lost, especially
when she was ruling, when her party was ruling.
Yeah, but she lost an election, and the good thing we can think about is that whether you like it or not, she considered defeat, and went to the United States, where she lived for like 3 years.
3 to 4 years, actually.
In what people characterize as self-imposed exile.
Did you ever get a chance to meet her?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I had the privilege of hosting her on Straight Talk Africa.
Tell me what your impression was like. Because people back here were like, why did she leave the country soon after the elections and she never came back?
I think she must have felt very uncomfortable. It's quite possible that somewhere along the transition, things didn't work well for her.
Okay.
She probably didn't get the respect that a person in that particular position really deserves. And those, I think she decided to go out for some time. I think she's a very skillful and intelligent individual. But I think that it was also not very easy for her because, let's face it, it's not easy to be a president of any country. It's not easy, and coming from Africa also, you're talking about societies which are patriarchal.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, even though we love our mothers.
No, we don't really give them a chance to.
Probably our sisters and what have you. But when it comes to this kind of business,
like, well,
somehow people think these ladies just, belong to the kitchen.
You are coming from a very hot kitchen, Zimbabwe, a very hot place politically, because they've just been going through an election. Started off like everything was going to be fine, and then turned chaotic. Things are kind of sobering up now. And you actually also moderated a candidate debate there. So you must have had quite a fair feeling of what the politics and the dynamics were like. Tell me what your impression was.
First of all, I have to be honest with you. I was amazed at how clean the Zimbabwean capital Harare is.
Is it?
Oh yeah, very clean. I mean,
it looked fairly dilapidated last time I passed through, which is
how long ago was
2010,
that?
I think.
Oh well, that's a long time.
That's a long time ago. Yes.
About 2018 right now.
Yes.
Very. I mean, you're talking about a country that has actually been, in a way, politically or internationally ostracized.
Exactly.
Yeah. You couldn't. I mean, I did not expect what I saw in Harare.
Yeah.
Permit me not to talk so much about Zimbabwe, frankly, because I think I would be really lying if I talked about Zimbabwe, because I never had the opportunity to go beyond the capital.
Okay.
I never went to Bulawayo.
Yes.
I never went to...
No,
I never went anywhere.
You were holed up in Harare?
Yeah. Not that anybody stopped me to do that.
Yes.
But the nature of the things that I was doing, the kind of appointments and expectations that I had to do and what have you, did not give me the opportunity to get out of the city.
So you were in Harare most of the time?
I was in Harare most of the time. But
and you were impressed?
I liked the place. I liked the place. People were going about their things, at least in what appeared to be normalcy. You have beautiful cars, on streets. Streets are clean.
Yeah.
They are pretty much repaired. You go to hotels and people are serving you and stuff like that. It was fine.
Yeah.
The election, as you rightly say, everything was fine.
Yeah.
Until that, that Wednesday, August 1st, when, some supporters of the opposition, especially Nelson Chamisa, yeah, kind of like tried to exercise their constitutional right, which is, peaceful, really protest and all kind of stuff. And then they were faced by not only the police, but eventually, I think, sincerely, when the army was deployed, and eventually you end up, like having 6 people killed or something of that sort. Somebody told me yesterday that by yesterday, I think, or the day before yesterday was about 7.
That's tragic.
And there are so many people also who were injured. In fact, I was told by a doctor, a physician, who works in a hospital, who told me that there were very many people who were injured.
That's just sad.
Yeah, so I don't honestly think that it was necessary. I think the Mnangagwa people, frankly, blew it. They made a very big mistake. They shouldn't have really called the army to come to town and get into the business of trying to sort out some civil,
unrest.
Yeah, because that's not the work of the army. The army, when you deploy it, you know that the army has live ammunition. It's going to use them.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did not, for example, ask them to use what they call training blanks, at least shoot in the air and what have you, so that people can disperse. Now, talking about the election, to be honest with you, it is interesting in the sense that when you talk to people in Harare, you pretty much get a sense that almost probably 8 out of 10, they are voting for change. They want change yesterday. And appropriately, I think they pretty much won very comfortably in Harare, but they lost miserably, especially in the countryside, where apparently I was told that ZANU PF, is in control. I have also, I'm not a child also because I've covered a lot of elections on the continent, to the extent that a lot of these elections, in fact, when you look at the facts that are involved, you could actually call them selections, especially when you have an election which is being organized and conducted by a government in power.
Yes.
A government in power which is democratically challenged. You end up actually having results which do not necessarily reflect the will of the voter or the will of the people, but rather, perhaps, the will of those who count the votes or the individual who announces the final result. You have these people who are in control of all the institutions that matter. You have a player who ran an election and yet he is also at the same time in a position where he decides who actually becomes a member of the Electoral Commission.
Yes.
He also is in charge of the money, the finance, the central bank, which he can use to compromise some people. He's also in control of the institutions of violence. You can talk about intelligence, you can talk about police, you can talk about the army. So really, you are imagining like a football, game, where an individual chooses the referee, chooses the linesmen, chooses probably even the spectators.
Yes.
And you expect really to have a fair football game. Or another example could be two boxers. This one individual is very free. He can box at the opponent while the opponent's hands are tied behind their back.
And they have to defend themselves.
Feet are tied together. And you hit him and you say, counterpunch. Of course. How do you expect them to counterpunch? So that is unfortunately where Africa is. But again, I think that one of these days things will change.
I've got a set of questions that I'd like to ask you, to which you can only answer yes or no.
I don't know. I will try.
You will?
Yeah.
Trust me, it's something that you...
If those are your ground rules...
They are my ground rules.
And where I feel uncomfortable...
You will say pass.
No comment.
Okay, fantastic. Let's start by you telling us your full name.
My full name?
Yes.
Shaka Ssali.
Do you have any tattoos?
No.
Do you have any piercings?
No.
Do you have children?
Yes.
Have you ever shot a gun?
Of course.
Have you cried over someone?
Yes.
Have you fallen in love before?
Well, I could say that, but others might say the more legitimate probably characterization of that condition is intense liking and infatuation.
On that scale, where do you fall?
At some point, I have been very, very up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the intense end. All right, so that I'll take that. That's all right. Have you killed a chicken before?
No, I've not had that kind of dubious privilege.
Have you gotten into a fight before?
Yes.
Have you gotten any surgeries?
Not yet.
Have you ever been hospitalized?
Yes.
Have you donated blood?
Yes.
Have you ever smoked weed?
Yes.
Have you drunk alcohol?
Yes.
Do you drink alcohol?
Sometimes I like having my red wine. Sometimes. It can be Shiraz, it can be Malo.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes I do, but not very much. In fact, on this trip, I have not touched any alcohol.
But you do take it?
Yes, sometimes. In fact, when I'm back in Washington,
yes,
almost every Wednesday, after presenting Straight Talk Africa,
you go and have a
I have a group, we go to a Kenyan joint for Nyama Choma and red wine.
Nyama Choma is glorious.
Yeah.
Do you have it with ugali?
Actually, sometimes, but most of the time they they make matoke for me.
Fantastic. That's why they called you Matoke, I guess. They should also call you Matoke. We have to wind up. We've got 2 more questions. Have you broken someone's heart?
Oh, yeah.
Have you had a crush on someone?
Yes.
I guess we have to end it there.
Well,
Shaka Ssali, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We haven't selected the last song though. What is the last song going to be?
Mutual, and the last song, of course, is one of the best songs that you can actually get from Lucky Dube.
Yes.
The kid that was born in Zimbabwe and made his name in South Africa, and unfortunately was killed in Johannesburg.
Such a sad story.
Yes, but I think that he was a great artist. A man, frankly, each time he sang, he reminded me of the spirit that we need to fight for our freedoms.
I think you like revolutionary music from what you've told us in the show.
Well, to be very honest with you, I think I'm the type of person that respects, again, socio-economic justice for all of us.
Yes.
And anytime somebody is making some contributions towards that end, I am on the same page with them.
I would like to be on the same page with you, and I thank you so much for showing up on this show.
And why not?
Thank you.
The feeling is mutual, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Next time you come to the States, be my guest.
I would love to meet you in the United States of America.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Different colors.